Who are our people? Nuestro Pueblo. Who is our congregation? Nuestra iglesia. There's a way to read this. To take a look at a list of people who were willing to sign on and be counted. They are our people. You are our people. Tú eres nuestro pueblo. But keep asking. And you'll hear folks all over the country who are counting on the worship and reflection on the scriptures that we right here provide every single week, either because they live in places where they just haven't been able to find a church home yet, or because they just find that the kind of worship that we have here is exactly what they need in their lives, and that's sufficient for them. They are the park in diaspora, and we're going to need to actually put more thought over the course of the next year about how we build community around them. And I want to thank some people. Say gracias to Reverend Jeanette and to Stephen. Actually, as I say your name, because I'm going to try to say a lot of names today, I want you to rise. You don't have to stand for the whole thing. But please, as I say your name, stand up. So Reverend Jeanette, Stephen, who you don't see, the man behind the curtain back there, Reverend Stephanie, Kevin, Paul, all of our musicians. Please rise. Thank you. Anyone who's ever sung in the choir, please rise. Anyone, all of y'all, rise. We thank you. We thank our sound technicians, Travis, and our staff, Chubby, and David, and Olbai, and Joe, and Alvin, and all the rest of the staff, and everyone who feeds this worshipful outreach. It has so many dimensions. You are our people. Tú eres nuestro pueblo. But then keep asking. And you'll hear people who've come to places of vulnerability, who receive physical and spiritual nourishment through our Saturday community lunch program. And we thank you, Reverend Luis Alfredo, for all that you do to keep this ministry going. Stand on up. Not everybody knows you. The folks in this program, they are our people. You are our people. Ustedes son nuestro pueblo. Keep asking. And you'll hear someone who never knew it was possible to love God and to care about justice and the activism of radical love because they thought church was irrelevant to that. But they will have heard from us in a rally standing in front of the Supreme Court or outside of ICE or in front of a prison, and they have encountered something new about God right there. And I thank everyone who offers this critical public witness. And if that is you, I invite you to rise, even if you've already risen. Yes, go ahead, do it. Stand on up. If this is you, Reverend Sidney, please make sure you're standing. That's right. Thank you. The people we reach this way are our people. Tú eres nuestro pueblo. And keep asking. And you'll hear someone who sits at table and reflects through Bible study here at our church in someone's home, through the Soul Food Fellowship or the Latinx gatherings. And so thank you, Reverend Richard and Reverend Sidney and Mary and Reverend Jeanette and Norma and everyone who brings thriving to this ministries. And if this is you, and if you've been to one of those, please rise. And thank you. They are our people. Tú eres nuestro pueblo. Keep asking. And you'll encounter more people who are incarcerated, and they receive healing through our prison ministry program. And we thank you, let's see, is she here? Reverend Maria, and Imam Musa, and Megan, and everybody who contributes to this important work. If that is you, please rise so we can thank you. They, the incarcerated, are our people. Ustedes eran nuestro pueblo. And keep asking, and you'll hear this nationwide call to accompaniment at the border. And I want you to hear this video that we prepared. It's going out. It just went out, I think, a couple days ago.
In October of this year, hundreds of people came together and made the unimaginable decision to flee a country that has become too dangerous for them to stay. The Northern Triangle of Central America is among the most dangerous places in the world, largely due to the foreign policy and interventions of the United States.
The rich tropical soil of Honduras can grow the vitally necessary war materials lost to us in the Pacific.
Honduras is a different kind of war, and we're in the most dangerous city in the world.
It's been called the most dangerous place on earth to be a woman.
Women, children, teens, men, trans and queer people, grandparents, all understood the power and safety in numbers. They have chosen to travel together in the spirit of past exodus towards life and the pursuit of happiness. We are calling on you, our faith communities, organizers, students, veterans, U.S. citizens, to be a part of a sanctuary caravan to meet our brothers and sisters and assure that their passage into this country is not only possible, but safe. What side of history will you be on? Join us to organize this movement.
In a nation where we weaponize children and women who we have placed in places of danger, faith communities are required to respond, and the park is doing it. And we are leading the call across the nation to take people to accompany people, asylum seekers with their paperwork in hand who have credible cases of asylum claims, to walk across the border and join us in this country in safety. So we will be doing this, and this is what we do all the time. This is the work of the church. Who are our people? They are our people. And I think that we best define who our people are by listening to Ruth. There was, in Ruth's time, a traditional way of figuring out who counted, and by those measures, Ruth and Naomi's relationship really wouldn't have made sense. But Ruth saw things differently. And she did something radical, something that we do well to learn from. Because the old ways of defining who was in and who was out, who's worthy of spending our dollars on, who our people are, the former ways don't make the same kind of sense as they would have when methods of reach were really different. "Do not press me to leave you," Ruth said to Naomi. And in that same way, our congregation has said the same. We will not be pressed to count the only people who walk through our doors as our people. We won't be pressed to do that. Someone said to one of our leaders recently, "Your church seems to be everywhere these days," which isn't quite true, nor should it be. But what they're referring to, seeing our church as being imminently relevant, is because we've decided to have a Ruth-like faith. Everyone is our people. Ellas son nuestro pueblo. And as we follow the same God, Jesus had a Ruth-like faith too. He had his people, and he expanded that. He changed what it meant to be part of his movement. He started with God's covenant people, but then he just kept serving. And he made everyone his people. His God was and is their God, our God, everyone's God, for everyone. And with this, like Ruth, Jesus redefined family. He redrew the lines of kin, and that matters so much. Because following Jesus means that you get to have the protection of family. We are each other's people no matter what circumstances we were born under. It means that whether or not things are well with your family, you have God's family. They are our people. Ellos son nuestro pueblo. And when I came to this church, I asked the community if we could be willing to take on a very simple mission. At the park, we'll follow Jesus, a Jesus. And we follow Jesus in the worship of God, right here in the sanctuary, but we also follow Jesus in the ministry of accompaniment of our people, everyone we can possibly serve. And Jesus, by the way, didn't wait for people to show up in some sanctuary to serve him, to serve them. Because he knew that his people were out there, waiting for him to come to them. In fact, the times we knew that Jesus went in sanctuaries, he got in a whole lot of trouble. So many things about this building project. As you said, the chaos around us, despite its annoyances. And I was thinking, as I was sharing with the church last week, that I have never seen this church in its proper state. I never have. I've never been here without the scaffolding. I've never used indoor plumbing in this church. How many of us have never used indoor plumbing in this church? A bunch, right? A lot of us in the room just don't even know that. What a privilege. I tell people, we have porta potties at my church, and they're like, how do you get anybody to come? And it's a good question. But anyway, despite those annoyances, and by the way, I think we will be able to use indoor toilets right through this door on maybe December 15th-ish. But I digress, because I'm taking us into the privilege and I want us to stay in the scrappy spot. But anyway, there are many things about this building project that are a real blessing. And it's not the obvious one, which is the income that it brings us so that we can keep this church operating. And just in case you don't know, one way of understanding our finances, and by the way, if you are part of our finance team that just came up with a radical budget, a moral budget, we want to thank you, and would you please rise? Yeah, no, up, come on. Bonnie and Harry and Scott's not here, our treasurer. But one way of understanding our finances is that it brings much of the money that we need to keep the church standing, but the actual ministries come from your gifts. And so I want to say thank you to everyone who gives to this church. And if that's you, I invite you to rise. This is really important. You are our people. Ustedes son nuestro pueblo. But one of the greatest blessings of this season, when the church is a mess all week long and you have to wear a hard hat to come through the doors, the blessing is that it has forced us out into the streets to meet our people, el pueblo de Dios. And I have served so many churches that were so busy, I could never leave the building. The model of them coming to us offers a lot to a lot of people, but it's not sustainable. Too often it conceives of the sanctuary as just this room. But actually, in truly following Jesus means that sanctuary isn't a room, it's a way of life. And we don't just invite people into the sanctuary, we are called to be sanctuary. Somos un santuario. And we say, you are our people, estamos juntos, eres nuestro pueblo. And so, as church, come, let's accompany each other through our life's needs. In so doing, we listen to Ruth and we follow Jesus. Seguimos a Jesús. So thank you, church. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you, church, for allowing me to be your pastor. I tell people what I do here, and they say, your church lets you say that? And that is the first time I've ever had that gift in my 15 years of ministry. So thank you for letting me be your pastor, to be your servant, to be with you through whatever your life is bringing. You are my people. Tú, ustedes son mi pueblo. They all are. Todos y todas son. Thanks be to God. Amen. Amen.